everyone, and welcome to today's third grade math lesson. We are going to be talking about how to solve for the unknown whole number for multiplication and division equations. For today's agenda, first we are going to review some vocabulary terms. After that, we'll review some strategies that you can use for multiplication and division. We'll also review the commutative property. Then we'll determine the unknown number in multiplication equations using those three strategies, and do the same for division, determining the unknown number in division equations using those three strategies. Finally, we will recap and conclude the lesson. So for the lesson, you will need a few items. You will need paper and a pencil, as well as some manipulatives. So for your manipulatives, your counting manipulatives, you can use things like gold stars, or sequins, or beads, or even things like sunflower seeds, or pasta, whatever you have at your house. You could even use Lego pieces or different small items. So as long as you have about 20 or 30 of those, then you will be all set. So first, let's review some vocabulary terms. So our first word is multiplication. And multiplication is when we multiply the rows by the columns to find the product. So I'll show you what I mean. So say I have 5 rows multiplied by 2 columns, and I want to find out what the product is, what the answer is, the total amount. So let me make 5 rows. So rows are horizontal, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5 rows. And I also need 2 columns. So I'm going to add a second column right here. And columns go vertically, so they go up and down. Okay, so now I have 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 columns. Columns go up and down, they're vertical, so 1, 2 columns. Okay, so 5 rows times 2 columns equals, so now I count up all the pieces. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 gold stars. So my product, my answer is going to be 10. So 5 rows times 2 columns equals 10. Now our next vocabulary term is division. And division is when you have the total number divided into the number of groups to find the quotient. So in this case, if I have 10 total, 10 stars right here, and I want to divide them into 2 groups, then I would share them one by one. So this is my first group, this will be my second group. And then another star in my first group, another star in my second group, a third star in my first group, a third star in my second group, a third star in my first group, and a fourth star in my first group, and a fourth star in my second group, and a 5th star in my first group, and a 5th star in my second group. So we can see that for our 10 stars, we divided them equally between 2 groups, first group and second group. Now we have to figure out how many stars are in each group. So if we count any of the groups, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars in the first group, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars in the second group. So our quotient is going to be 5. So 10 stars divided into 2 groups equals 5 stars in each group. So that's division. Now our next vocabulary word is equal groups, which means the same amount of the manipulatives are in each group. So for example, if you're using Lego pieces, then if you have 2 pieces in one group, you would also need to have 2 Lego pieces in the other group. Same with if you're using stars, beads, beans, whatever you're using for your manipulatives. So would this be equal groups? It would not, because our first group has 2 stars, but then our second group has 3 stars. That makes these unequal groups. And for division and multiplication, these have to be equal groups. So now they're equal groups. They'd also be equal groups if they both had 3 stars, or if they both had 4 stars. The thing with equal groups is as long as it's the same number in each group. So for example, this group has 4 stars, so this group also has to have 4 stars as well. So these are equal groups. Now our next vocabulary word is array. An array means the rows by the columns. So for example, for a 2 by 3 array, I would need 2 rows, 1, 2, and 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. So using our manipulatives, let's make a 2 by 3 array. So remember, 2 rows, 3 columns. So we have our first row and our second row, and then we need 3 columns. So let's add those. Okay, now let's see if that's correct. So we have 2 rows, 1, 2, and 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. So this is a 2 by 3 array. Awesome. All right, 2 more vocabulary words to go, and those are product and quotient. Product is used for multiplication. For example, 5 rows times 2 columns equals 10. 10 is the product. For division, we say quotient. So for example, a total of 10 divided into 2 equal groups equals 5 in each group. 5 is our quotient. So if you want to, you can pause the video and write down our vocabulary terms. Now there's one last vocabulary term that we need to go over, and that is commutative property. Commutative property is when the factors are switched. So for example, when 7 times 3 is switched to 3 times 7, it gives us the same product, the same answer. So in other words, 7 times 3 is the same as 3 times 7. It gives us the same answer. So for another example, if we have the numbers 8 and 2, 8 times 2 is going to give us the same thing as 2 times 8. Or if we had 5 times 4, that would be the same as 4 times 5. Or if we had 2 times 9, that would give us the same answer as 9 times 2. So I'll show you with an example. So here, suppose we had 2 times 3. So we have 2 rows, so 1, 2, and 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. And we need to find the product. So we need to find the total. So we add them up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's remember that number 6. So 2 rows times 3 columns, 2 times 3, equals a total of 6. So now I'm going to switch the factors. Instead of 2 times 3, I'm going to say 3 times 2. So let's try that. So 3 times 2 means that there's going to be 3 rows. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 2 columns. 3 times 2. 3 rows, 2 columns. All right, so now we've got 1, 2, 3 rows, and 1, 2, 2 columns. 3 rows, 2 columns. Now let's add all of these up to find the product. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's interesting. It has the same product as 2 times 3. So 3 times 2 and 2 times 3 both have that product of 6. And I'm actually going to put 2 times 3 one more time so that we can compare. Okay, so now we have 3 times 2 right here and 2 times 3 right here. And both times the answer, the product, is 6. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. So you can see that even when the factors are switched, even when the order of those numbers are switched, it still gives us the same product, it's the same answer. So whether it's 3 times 2 or 2 times 3, both times it gives us the product of 6. So that's the example of the commutative property. Even when we switch those factors, switch those numbers, we still get the same answer. So now it's time to look at some of the strategies that you can use when solving for multiplication and division problems. So here we have 2 times 3, and we have to find the product. Okay, so we know that 2 is going to be the groups. So we're going to draw 1, 2, so 2 circles on your piece of paper. And then we know that there's going to be 3 in each group. So let's use dots for our drawing. So you can do 1, 2, 3 dots in your first group, and 1, 2, 3 dots in your second group. Awesome. So now we have 2 groups of 3 dots in each group. All right, now it's time to add up all the dots to figure out our total. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots total. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So that's using our drawings method. Now let's look at our manipulatives method. So we've got 2 groups times 3 in each group. So let's do 2 circles. So 1, 2, and then 3 in each group. Okay, so I'm going to use my stars. You can use whatever manipulatives that you have at home. So I'll put 3 stars in the first group and 3 stars in the second group. All right, there we go. So 3 stars are in both groups. So now when we add it all together, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A total of 6. So we'll write equals 6. Now the last strategy that you can use besides drawings and manipulatives is equations. And so if you know your multiplication facts, then you know that 2 times 3 equals 6. And if you don't know your multiplication facts yet, that's also okay, because we were able to use our other 2 strategies of drawings and manipulatives to find the answer. Notice that no matter which strategy you use, whether it's drawings, manipulatives, or equations, you're always going to get that same product. 6, 6, and 6. 2 times 3 always equals 6. So that's our answer. So that was a multiplication equation. Now let's look at a division equation. How do we solve for a division equation using our 3 strategies? Our division equation is a total of 6 divided or shared equally between 2 groups, and we have to find the number that is in each group. All right, so let's use our first strategy of drawings. So we've got a total of 6 dots. So on your piece of paper, I want you to do 6 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your next step is to draw 2 circles. So 1, 2, 2 circles. And then you're going to evenly share or evenly put your dots one at a time in each group. So I'm going to cross out my first dot, put it here. My second dot, put it in my other group. This one goes here. This one goes here. This one goes here. And this one goes here. So notice that all of my dots are used and each of them are put in the groups one by one. So now, the moments of truth. How many dots are in just one of the groups? So we've got 1, 2, 3. 3 dots in that group, and 1, 2, 3, 3 dots in this group. So we're going to say equals 3 dots because we're looking for the number of dots in each group. So 3 dots. Awesome. So 6 divided by 2 would equal 3 because we had a total of 6 dots. We divided them into 2 groups, 1, 2, and found that there were 3 dots in each group. So now let's try our second strategy using our manipulatives. So our beans, beads, gold stars, whatever you have. Okay, so since the equation is 6 divided by 2, we know that we're going to start off with a total of 6. Just like we started off with 6 dots, now we're going to start off with 6 manipulatives. Okay, so you should have 6 of your manipulatives in front of you. And now, since it is 6 divided by 2, we need to draw 2 circles for our stars, or beans or beads, or Legos. All right, so 2 circles. And now we need to divide 6 divided by 2. We need to divide our 6 stars into these 2 groups equally, so 1 by 1. So 1 star is going to go in my first group, which means that 1 star is going to go into my second group. Notice that these groups are equal groups because they both have just 1 star. Now you can add a second star to each of your circles and a third star to each of your circles. All right, so now the moment of truth. When you divide 6 stars into 2 equal groups, how many stars are in each group? If you said 3 stars are in each group, you are correct. Equals 3. Awesome job. So we have 1, 2, 3 stars in our first group and 1, 2, 3 stars in our second group. So 6 divided by 2, once again, equals 3. All right, let's try our third strategy of equations. If you know your division equations, then you know that 6 divided by 2 equals 3. If you don't know your division equations yet, that's also okay, because we solved for the answer using our drawings as well as our manipulatives. So we already solved for this answer in 2 other ways. And notice that you get the same answer each time, 3, 3, and 3. So it's always going to yield the same answer, the same quotient. So 6 divided by 2 always equals 3. In other words, a total of 6 divided into 2 equal groups equals 3 in each group. So let's find the unknown number for some more multiplication and division problems using our 3 strategies. So for our first multiplication problem here, we have 5 times equals 10. 5 times equals 10. So if we're using our drawings, then we know that 5 rows times columns is going to equal 10. So let's do 5 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that makes 5 rows because rows are horizontal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows times equals 10. So we need a total of 10. And we have to figure out how many columns we need going vertically to make 10 dots. Well, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots. And what do you know makes 10? How do we get from 5 to 10? Well, we know that 5 plus 5 equals 10. So let's add 5 more dots in our second column. Okay, so now we have 5 rows still. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's check how many total dots we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, we do have 10 dots total. Interesting. So we have 5 rows times columns equals 10 dots. So we already have our total of 10 dots. So how many columns do we have? Well, columns go vertical, they go up and down, so 1, 2. So we have 2 columns. 5 times 2 equals 10. So I'm going to write 2 columns. So in other words, 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, times 2 columns, 1, 2, makes a total of 10 dots. So our answer is 2. But let's also use our other strategies to solve for this as well. So let's use our manipulative strategy. So back to 5 times equals 10. We know that there's going to be 5 rows. So let's make 5 rows with our manipulatives. All right, so there's 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because remember rows go horizontally, they go left and right. And then we need a total of 10 because it's 5 times equals 10. So we really need a total of 10 manipulatives. So it'll go 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so now we have a total of 10 gold stars, or whichever manipulative that you use, as well as 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my question to you is, how many columns do we have? Well, columns go up and down, they're vertical, so we have 1, 2 columns. So 5 rows times 2 columns equals 10 total stars. So I'm going to write 2 columns. So for our equation, our last strategy, 5 times equals 10. If you know your multiplication facts, then you know that 5 times 2 equals 10. And if you don't know your multiplication facts yet, that's also okay, because we solved it in 2 other ways. We solved for 2 columns using our drawings strategy, and 2 columns using our manipulative strategy. So that's another way that you could write that 2 in there. So again, 5 rows times 2 columns equals 10, as shown both in our drawings and in our manipulatives. So our answer is 5 times 2 equals 10. So 2 is the unknown number that we solved for. So now let's try this from a division problem. So we've got 10 divided by equals 5. So we have a total of 10 divided into a number of groups to equal 5 in each group. All right, so let's start out with our drawings strategy. So we'll draw 10 dots on our piece of paper. Okay, so we have 10 dots on our paper, a total of 10, and we need to divide them into a certain number of groups such that there are 5 in each group. Okay, so I'm going to put 5 in my first group, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means I'm going to cross out 5 of these dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, what I did is I put 5 dots in my first group because this is 5 in each group. Now let me look at the dots in my second group and put them in my other group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now all the dots have been used. So 5 in one group and 5 in another group. So it's a total of 10 dots divided into a certain number of groups to mean 5 in each group. Well, this group has 5 dots and this group has 5 dots. So how many groups do we have total? If you said 2, you are correct. We have one group here and the second group here. And let's double check to make sure we're on the right track. So we have a total of 10 dots. Those were our 10 right here. We divided them into a certain number of groups such that there were 5 in each group. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots in this group and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots in each group, in this group. So here's our first group and here's our second group. So there's 2 groups total. 2 groups. Awesome. So that was using our drawings strategy. Now let's use our manipulative strategy. So you can get your beans, beads, Lego pieces, sequins, whatever you have. And we need a total of 10 of these manipulatives because we have a total of 10 right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so here I have 10 gold stars. You can have 10 of whatever manipulative that you use. And we have 10 divided by a certain number of groups to equal 5 in each group. So let's put 5 in each group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our first group. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in our second group. Okay, so we have 5 stars in each group. So a total of 10 stars shared equally or divided among a certain number of groups to equal 5 in each group. Well, there's 5 stars in this group and 5 stars in this group. So how many groups do we have? If you said 2 groups, you are correct. We have our first group of 5 stars here and our second group of 5 stars here. So we have 2 groups total, 1, 2. So I'm going to write 2 groups. 2 groups. Okay, now for our last strategy of equations, I'm going to rewrite the problem, which was right here. 10 divided by equals 5. So if you know your division equations, then you know that 10 divided by 2 equals 5. If you don't know your division equations yet, that's also okay, because we found the answer in 2 other ways. We found the answer using our drawing strategy, that it would be 2 groups, and we also found 2 groups using our manipulative strategy. So either way, we will know that this is the number 2 for our unknown number. So in other words, 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So a total of 10 divided into 2 equal groups equals 5 in each group. Awesome job. So I hope that you enjoyed today's 3rd grade math lesson of how to solve for the unknown whole number for multiplication equations. We started the lesson off by reviewing our vocabulary terms of multiplication, division, equal groups, arrays, products, quotients, and the commutative property. After that, we reviewed our 3 strategies of drawings, manipulatives, and equations. Following that, we solved for our sum multiplication equations, solving for those unknown whole numbers. So I hope that you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you back for another one soon.